Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're going to start today a new study. I really want us to look at the three writing prophets who prophesy to the northern kingdom. They're each individual. They're not one is like the other. And all three books, which are found in the Minor Prophets, are just amazing reads, and they are writing to a nation that is in rebellion, where the faithful are such a tiny minority. And I thought it would be a nice study for us. So we're going to be studying the three writing prophets, which prophesied directly to the northern kingdom, which are Hosea, Amos, and Jonah. And so we're going to be looking at those. But before we do, I want us to talk about the northern kingdom and what it is and how it came to be. Samuel actually united the kingdom, coalesced the 12 tribes into an actual nation that functioned as a nation. Samuel judged that nation his entire life, and then, but he had no one to succeed him. His sons were worthless men the way Eli's sons were. Uh, the people wanted a king. God gave them King Saul. Saul was rejected. Samuel anointed David to be king. David was an amazing king. David is the ideal, really, of the righteous king, and the precursor of Christ. Solomon started out very good, but by the end of his life, prosperity, success, had devolved into this person who had so many foreign wives and had built for them temples on the hills around Jerusalem so they could worship their foreign gods. And we read about what happened at the end of Solomon's reign, the end of Solomon's life, and the beginning of Rehoboam, his son's reign, in 1 Kings chapters 11 and 12. A man rose to prominence named Jeroboam. Jeroboam was a mighty warrior and he was a charismatic figure. And Solomon saw that he was a man of promise and put him in charge of all slave labor. But Jeroboam, um, uh, did not like the way the people were being treated. God did not like the way the people were becoming idolatrous. And so, he had in his heart, and God allowed him to rebel. He was not able to wrest the kingdom from Solomon. He had to flee to Egypt and lived in Egypt under Shishak's reign. But after Solomon died, and his son Rehoboam, who was a weak and awful man, began to reign, Jeroboam returned and fomented rebellion and led away the 10 northern tribes. And so from about 930 BC on, we don't have a united Israel ever again, really. We don't. We have the northern kingdom, which is called Israel, and the southern kingdom of Judah and Benjamin, which is called Judah. So from 930, there is a northern kingdom of Israel that Jeroboam establishes. Its capital city is Samaria. I know that's confusing because we have the Samaritans in the New Testament that get their name from the capital city of the northern kingdom, but the Samaritans are named after Samaria. Samaria is the northern kingdom's capital, and 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 um, the northern kingdom, Jeroboam is worried about the people going back to Jerusalem to worship, and so he establishes uh, two um, two shrines to a new god that he establishes, a god that is a bull, and it harkens back to the golden calf that was made, during the beginning of the wilderness wanderings when Moses was on the mountain. But also, the bull cult is an ancient cult in Canaan as well, and so he set up two different shrines in the northern kingdom and encouraged the people who worship not Yahweh anymore, but the bull. And so we are in these writing prophets continuing to deal with the idolatry of the people that is encouraged by the state, by the nation of the northern kingdom. There were some very powerful kings of the northern kingdom. King Ahab, we know Ahab and Jezebel. We know Ahab very well. He was a prosperous and powerful king and also a wicked and awful man. Omri, the king of the northern kingdom, may have been the most powerful king after Solomon died. And so there were periods of time when the northern kingdom dominated the southern kingdom. There were periods of time when they were in conflict with each other. Most of the time, they were joining forces to fight the the nations around them. The Syrians are the main enemy of the northern kingdom. And so the Syrians immediately north, their capital is Damascus. But the existential threat to them and to the southern kingdom is the Assyrians. And the Assyrians in 722 will invade the northern kingdom and carry them into Assyrian captivity, and the northern kingdom will cease to exist. So it lasted barely 200 years. It ceases to exist in 722 BC. When the Assyrians carried the northern kingdom away into captivity, it was as brutal um, um, a captivity as anybody has ever experienced on earth. And the Assyrians, which were as brutal a regime, perhaps the most brutal regime that ever existed, they scattered their captives to the four winds of their empire because they didn't want anyone to be able to maintain their community and then form a rebellion. And so it really did cease to exist. Although we do meet people from the northern kingdom afterwards, even in the New Testament. Anna, who is in the temple and who blesses the baby Jesus, is from the tribe of Asher, from the northern kingdoms. So anyway, that's the history of the northern kingdom. The northern kingdom in its 200-year history had quite a rich prophetic tradition. Elijah and Elisha work basically in the northern kingdom and prophesy primarily to the northern kingdom. We're not going to be discussing Elijah and Elisha in this study, but they also had these three writing prophets, Hosea, Amos, and Jonah. Those we will talk about, and we'll introduce them as prophets next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.